Hi, I'm Anne. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing my August wrap-up. So I read 10 books in August, which is not quite as fantastic as the 23 I read in July, but still perfectly respectable. I'm very happy with 10 books, and some of them were quite large. So yeah, I'm very happy with 10 books. Normally when I do my wrap-ups, I go in order of when I read them. I'm going to do it a little bit differently this month just because I read a lot of series and parts of series, so I'm going to group things together in a way that makes sense. So I'm going to start with Betsy and the Great World and Betsy's Wedding by Maud Hart Lovelace. These are books 9 and 10 in the Betsy Tacy series. And I know you've probably been hearing a ton about these two books recently, so I'm going to keep it brief. I really enjoyed these books. They follow Betsy as she's a little older. A few years have passed since book 8, when she graduated high school. Some time has gone by, and in Betsy and the Great World, she is off to Europe to travel. And I know a lot of people have liked book 9 less for that reason, that she's not home and with her family and friends that we've come to love in the first 8 books in the series. And I understand that. For me, that made this book stand out, and I really enjoyed seeing Betsy in a different environment with different friends and different people. I loved seeing there was just an element of her independence that you haven't seen before without it being a negative thing or rebellious or, something she shouldn't be doing. She was just out in the world on her own, exploring and learning and growing and becoming who she was, who she is. And I just really, really liked that. Now, she's not entirely alone. There's people that she connects with and sometimes travels with a little bit. But so often in this era of literature, you get people that are always together. Women always had a companion or different things like that. And so I loved seeing that just kind of off on her own, growing into herself. I really liked that aspect of it. And then in book 10, Betsy's Wedding picks up right exactly when Betsy and the Great World leaves off. Betsy has come home. Betsy and the Great World ends right on the cusp of World War I, which is also a really interesting thing about that book, that being in Europe as World War I kind of begins. But yeah, so Betsy's Wedding, she comes home, and I expected, like I think a lot of people expected, this whole book to kind of be leading up to and the prep for her wedding. It is not that at all. She actually gets married in the first few chapters of the book, and then the rest of the book follows her first year or two of married life, and I loved that. Again, so often you get and they lived happily ever after, and you never get to see anything past the wedding. And I loved seeing her life with her husband and just the challenges they faced in the first year, because happily ever after is not 100% happy all the time. We all know that. But to see that in a book and to see the way they worked through things and talked about things and were flexible for each other and made allowances for each other, I really, really loved that. And so yes, books 9 and 10 in the Betsy Tacy series definitely rank high for me in all of them. Out of all of them, they're probably my 2 favorites. Then I read books 3, 4, 5, and 6 in the Keeper of the Lost Cities series by Shannon Messenger. This is a middle grade fantasy series. I'm sure you've heard me talk about it. I'm sure you've heard other people talk about it. But this follows our main character, Sophie, who way back in book 1 finds out she is not human, she's actually an elf, and then her journey into the elven world and the friendships and the challenges and this, kind of secret societies that are trying to kind of overthrow the way the elven world works. And just, yeah, a lot of exciting things are happening, there's so much going on in these books, and I really highly recommend the series. I love the way that friendships and family relationships are portrayed in the series. You just get so many good examples of like parent-child relationships or, child-teacher or mentor type relationships. Again, those friendships are just fantastic in this book. They're so funny, and these kids love each other so much, but they still get annoyed with each other, and they're really snarky with each other sometimes. And it's just, I love just the way all the different characters interact. But through it all, there's just a very obvious, everyone really loves each other and wants the best for each other. And I really like seeing that portrayed so well in a book. Books 5 and 6 definitely get a little heavier. and a little more, yeah, just a little darker, I think, which for me works. I loved books 5 and 6. I know that's not for everyone. I know I have other people in my life that are reading them right now too, and I know 5 and 6 were maybe a little bit, they enjoyed them a little less. They still enjoyed them, but maybe a little less because of that. But for me, I really like that. I've already started book 7, and book 8 is not out yet, so I don't know what I'm going to do when I have to wait for book 8. Luckily, it's coming out in November, so it won't be too long. But after that, it's going to be awful. I don't know. All right, moving on to standalone books. I read The Bookish Life of Nina Hill by an author I can't remember, but I'll put it here. I read this while we were on vacation, while we were camping, and I liked it pretty well. This book is about Nina, who is very much an introvert and has her perfect little life alone. She works at a bookstore. She's involved with other things. She has, a trivia team that she's part of. And she's very happy with her life. But then things get more complicated. She finds out she has family that she hadn't been aware of before. And all these things come in to mess up her very ordered and peaceful life. A life that's the way she very much likes it to be. And there were aspects of this book I really liked. I liked the humor. Again, you've got a really witty sense of humor in this book, and I really liked that. I liked some of the characters. I liked the idea of the book, but I found Nina to be a little unbelievable because she's presented as someone who's very introverted, has maybe a little bit of social anxiety, is just she's not open to a lot of change in her life. And yet, she talks about how she has one night a week set aside for her reading night. Like, this is the night she reads. But I know for most introverts, at least the ones I know, one night a week is not enough. And the other, if you're home one night a week and the other 6 nights a week you're out, that's not realistic. I didn't like the portrayal of the man that comes into her life. I liked him fine, but she's inviting him to her place, like, after they've talked for 5 minutes. Like, that doesn't seem realistic to me. For the kind of character she was presented as, it doesn't seem like she was always following through. Like, her character didn't seem to stay the same. She was just too quick to jump into social things, too quick to invite men she doesn't really know to her house. There was a little bit of imbalance there, I felt like. Overall, I still enjoyed the story. I didn't love it. It's probably not something I would read again, but it's worth picking up. If the plot sounds interesting to you, I think it's worth a read. There were just some things that I thought could have been done better. Right after that, there were 3 rereads this month that I want to talk about. The first is Locked Rooms by Laurie R. King. I've talked about this series before. This is part of the Mary Russell series, which is it's not really a retelling, but it's Sherlock Holmes as he's retired. So it's a retired Sherlock Holmes and his apprentice. It's mainly focusing on his apprentice, Mary Russell. This is book 8 in that series, and this digs into Mary's past. And it's really interesting. You've got like some repressed memories. You've got all kinds of trauma that she's kind of pushed away and is starting to uncover in this book. And it's really interesting. It's set in San Francisco. And it's a little bit different than a lot of others in the series. It's much more kind of personal and introspective, but I really like that. Obviously, if you are interested in reading this series, which I highly recommend, do not start with this one. Start at the beginning with The Beekeeper's Apprentice. Then I read Thursday Next, First Among Sequels by Jasper Fforde. This is part of the Thursday Next series. This is book 5. And this one actually comes after a big kind of leap forward in time after the first. There's 4 books, and then this book jumps forward in time like 14 years, 12, 14, I think 14 years. So you have Thursday, you have her husband and her children, which are, more grown, obviously. And so you've got some of that teenage drama going on. And I love this series. This is my 3rd or 4th time rereading it, I think. And Thursday she's a Literatech agent, which basically means it's her job to police the book world. So she goes in and out of books. She helps kind of keep an eye on different book characters that tend to cause problems. This one's a lot of fun because in this one she actually comes up against herself. She comes up against the book Thursday Next. which is really fun. But again, I highly recommend this series. Start with the first one, which is called The Air Affair. And then the last book I want to mention is The Road to Yesterday by Ellen Montgomery. This is also a reread. This is a book of short stories. And I've been rereading some of her lesser known works, some of her short stories and her standalone works that aren't as well known. And I really enjoyed this one. Some of her short story collections I get a little bored with. The way they've grouped them together is sometimes you get several short stories in a row. They're very, very similar. They're all about orphans, or they're all about, lost love, or whatever it may be. And this one wasn't like that. It had quite a bit of variety, which I really liked. And I just recently found out, shout out to Megan Hannett, I will link her channel below, who is an expert on all things Ellen Montgomery, that this is not the book as Ellen Montgomery originally wrote it, that this is kind of a pared down version of her book, The Blythes Are Quoted, which was more recently published the way she originally wrote it. So I'm definitely going to have to find a copy of The Blythes Are Quoted and read that too. But in the meantime, I really enjoyed my reread of The Road to Yesterday. So that is it for me. Those are the 10 books I read in August. I hope you had a great reading month. Be sure to let me know down below what your favorite book was that you read in the month of August. And as always, thank you for watching.